Okay, so we're back. Today we're going to talk about a few different things. I know that as I go into this stuff, and especially the timing barrel aspect of it, there's a lot of gunsmiths out there going, but out here in the real world, that's just stupid. You know, there's not enough time in the world. I've got a $250,000 machine here that can chamber to the highest, absolutely the highest standards. I've got the high dollar indicator that'll reach all the way in and find that throat. Number one, I have no issue with that whatsoever. Number two, there are situations when you get into the big guns, which a lot of the high-end gunsmiths just don't touch really long cases. You take a 300 WSM or a 338 RUM, or not a WSM, RUM, or the Lapua case is actually a lot shorter. With some of the big Weatherbies, if you're there's a thing, and you'll be subjected to this if the channel lasts, but in the quest for case capacity, I think Weatherby cases are stupid, but they are still cases. So check this out. Here's a thing a person can do with a Weatherby case that someday I might show you. This is a belted Magnum Weatherby, and to make it a Weatherby, it has to go out here and then do this stupid Roy Weatherby radius shoulder mitten. It's actually like this. But anyway, it's not a bad case. It's made by Norma. It's fairly tough, but you want to really make it into something? You have yourself a reamer ground here. You want to see an interesting usage of the Weatherby case? You fire a Weatherby case in that chamber, and someday we may just show you what happens. Again, the bridge washes out, the world stands, and anybody's interested in seeing it. So, what I'm saying is everybody's got a niche, and for every gunsmith that says, well, that's just crazy, I say, well, sure, it is. But if you can get twice as much money for it, what's the difference? You know, I'm a foundation contractor. I do little houses, I do big houses, I do additions. You know, right now, I've got foundations going that range from $1,200 to $112,000. So what? If a thing is, if timing barrels is stupid, then don't time barrels. But if timing barrels is interesting, cost twice as much, cost more than twice as much. That's not the point. The thing is, I learned this in the construction industry. Speed, over here you got price, and over here you got quality. Now really take the time to look at them. Gunsmiths, especially BR style or high-end gunsmiths, tend to sell price and quality. And they operate on something called gunsmith's time. And that's fine. It's kind of an old standard of the industry. But the point I'm making is something totally different. You can only get two. You can't get speed, price, and quality. Now, out in the market of major gun making, that's not completely true, because CNCs and NCs and numerically controlled, computer controlled equipment means that SBS from Walmart made today shoots better than the highest grade Remington 700 from 40 years ago. I'm sorry, all you purists. Blued steel and wood all day, raw. But when I get a 299 SPS in here that honestly shoots well under an inch, I have to say, wow, the American machine industry is doing something really cool here. With production machinery, machining centers is kind of what they've come down to. Now you can kind of get a speed and quality and price, a little bit of overlap here in the middle. But for us one-off guys, or for even gunsmiths who go out and do hundreds or thousands of guns a year, you can get speed and cheap price. You can get speed and quality for a really high price. But most gunsmiths are selling price and quality, and they're reluctant to say, well, you know, I could do that barrel timing thing, but it's going to cost you. Well, sell it, or don't, or whatever. I'm just offering that it's out there, and that I enjoy it, and that's what I'm going to be, that's just one of the things I'm going to be playing around with here, and showing on, you know, on the stuff that we're doing here. Not to tout Gordy Gritter's horn or to even be in any way, I just want to always give credit where credit is due. He's the one that came up with this, whether we use an indicator inside or whether we use a grizzly style rod that maybe he doesn't want to put his, maybe he's a little bent that I'm still calling it a Gordy rod, I don't know. But it's a way to go in and do something. And we're going to do this. And we're going to find out if it works with a barrel nut. And we're going to make some cases. That's where we're headed right now on this little odyssey of ours. So let's go, I'm going to go start, probably move the camera down and we'll get out. Oh, actually, I want to show you something else. This segment's still got a lot of time in it, so I'm going to change gears completely here. I'm going to show you something that we're going to someday probably go through. I'll show you the world's biggest muzzle brake. One of the things I've promised is that I'm going to explain how muzzle brakes work. People look at this and they go, oh no, that's not the world's biggest muzzle brake, and that's not even a very effective muzzle brake, because that's just one of those stupid muzzle brakes with a bunch of holes in it. The effective muzzle brakes have big old, they're called tanker style, and they have big old flat plates. And well, first of all, people that say that are a little bit right. Because of how a muzzle brake works. Muzzle brakes work very simply. If you're a construction guy and you're carrying a sheet of plywood down the side of a house and you step right around the corner of the house and the wind catches it, you and the plywood might be well going over the bank or into the drink or into the barbed wire fence, depending on where you're working. But the point is, it's probably going to divert your trajectory. That's how a muzzle brake works. That's it. I teach hunter's ed in the upstairs room of this building, and I'm the gun guy. And I touch on ballistics, and we always have some kid who's been reading and who's just absolutely morsel on anything that any sign of curiosity. We get some wonderful kids through here. All kids are wonderful, and they're all curious if you'd spark it. But anyway, they say, well, what about ballistics? What about how does this work? And I said, ballistics is really, 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 really easy. A bullet is a fast rock. That's it. A bullet is a fast rock. To be more specific, it's a fast football in the case of rifle bullets because it's stabilized like a football. It's not misunderstood, it's not poorly understood, it's not mysterious, it is well understood, completely understood. There are no mysteries in external ballistics. Regardless of what all the people want to say. I mean, there's books out there that continually tout these mysteries, and they're just crap. All that means is that you don't understand prior work. I've used the phrase before, we stand on the shoulders of giants, but on the wall right up here, if you were standing where I am and I look up, which I just did, I got a sign on the wall that says, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. There are an awful lot of people who think they're ballisticians and they can't understand the simplest thing about ballistics. So, muzzle brakes. This is a muzzle brake I built in an attempt to tame my 50 fart, which I can't tame it because it's way too efficient. It pushes a 750 to 895 grain bullet up to just over 1,050. And this muzzle brake won't even slow it down. Now, this muzzle brake on a 50 BMG, I could shoot it off my face. Well, I can shoot it an inch away from my face and not hurt myself, because remember, the way a muzzle brake works is, this is a rifle barrel. After the bullet has left, the bullet, peoples, is gone, out of the picture. There's a whole bunch of high pressure gas in here that's just waiting to escape, and it blurts out all around the base of that bullet, which is why your muzzle crown is so stinking important, people. Leaking crowns is just the bane of accuracy. Bad bullet bases, this is why brass preparation can be so huge. If you're dropping bullets into a case that's not accepting it without nicking or dinging, when that 50,000 psi right here starts to leak out around that bullet as it's leaving, it kicks it, it moves it, it disrupts it. It's not a good thing. So we draw another one in here just to complete the picture. Now that screwed up our muzzle brake illustration. So, barrel, big pressure, gas is coming out, and after the bullet leaves, now we got a barrel left that's got this gas is just spewing out. They're wasted. All of the recoil, 100% of the recoil equation is over and solved by the time this muzzle enters into the picture. Recoil is the result of equal and opposite reactions. Go back to grade school and study Newton's laws. For every bit of ejecta and velocity that goes this way, you have an equal and opposite force back toward the shooter. Now included in the ejecta is the projectile and the powder, the weight of the powder. You got 100 grains of powder, that's 100 more grains of recoil that's being generated by being blown out the muzzle. So the bullet is gone now, the bullet is out of this picture, but we still have this gas pouring forth. And it's picking up velocity now because it's unrestrained. And energy builds as the square of the velocity, so without getting into math that I don't understand, you've actually got an inordinate amount of usable energy here already going in that direction, already going outward. It's already achieved its velocity, it's going away, it's wasted, it's called ejecta. All you do is stick up a sheet of plywood for it to impinge against, the same way the wind impinges on the sheet of plywood that's in your hand. Now you take that sheet of plywood, you tie it back to the gun, and you've got a muzzle brake. Bunch of excess gas. Now, all of the recoil that happens during the acceleration cycle, while that bullet's ramping up to speed, that's all yours. So, the trick with really big guns, after all your life of learning how to hold a gun firmly and ride it and ride the recoil and not get hurt, that has to go out the window. With really big guns, 375 and up, 50 BMGs. 50 BMG will kill you if there's no muzzle brake on it. I mean, it's going to send 7 tons into you. It's like being driven over with a Mack truck. You pick up a 12, 14 pound 50 BMG, take off the brake and try to shoot it, you're going to hurt yourself. You are going to be hurt. It's going to hurt you. You're not going to hurt yourself. The gun's going to hurt you badly. So, pulling the trigger on a 50 BMG is like unleashing a Mack truck or a train. It's like tying yourself to a train. That train starts back, and just as it's getting ready to obliterate your collarbone, that gas starts to impinge on these plates. And it sucks the gun back. It pulls the gun back off of you. That's how it works. That's all a muzzle brake is it takes that excess ejecta, that excess gas, that high pressure. The gas has mass, air has mass. I mean, this isn't the forum to be discussing whether or not light has mass. That's really wicked interesting and fun. We go off into all kinds of theories, but air is not. Come on, people. Air has not only measurable mass, but lots and lots of mass to work with. On a common load, 30–40% of the ejecta can be gases. You got a 40 grain cartridge like this one we've been working on, and it's pushing a 110, 120 grain bullet. and it's, you know, when I say 40 grain cartridge, you have to understand I sometimes use shorthand. It takes about 40 grains of powder. We're shooting about 40 grains of powder. And we're shooting, let's just say we're shooting 40 grains of powder with an 80 grain bullet. 40, 80. I mean, a third of the ejecta, a third of the generated recoil is from that powder. Now, you're going to find out, because we're in the middle of this whole series where we're going to demonstrate some chambering techniques, and we're also going to blow out some cases. We're going to make some cases. So we're going to be firing some cases with no bullet. We're going to be generating all that pressure to blow that case out and shove that ejecta out. And you're going to see that there is a recoil. It's not distressing, it's not harmful, it's not whatever. And it happens so fast that now we have to take in the inertia of the object that it's pushing. Inertially, the gun is so, and here's a way you can say that. If this were made out of lead, and if it were solid, I can push it. But if I back off and smack it with the open palm, it's going to hurt my palm. It's going to do all kinds of things, but it might only move this thing a little ways, because the inertia, overcoming the inertia takes time. There's all sorts of moments involved here that you're kind of intuitive. You don't have to have any math or anything. So just understand that that gas, when it's trying to, and it's recoiling to recoil that gun back, it's very fast, and it's kind of like a, as opposed to a. So, but that doesn't change the fact that there's a ton of usable gas being generated and going out. And this is where it gets interesting, because not only is this the world's biggest muzzle brake, it's the world's most efficient muzzle brake. And I'll show you why. And this is where I want everybody yelling at the screen and saying, no, I know something better. Great! Bring it! That's what life is all about, man. I've tried every arrangement of holes, staggered, holes, drilled slots, flat plates, anything I can think of. I've had a recoil sled for years. I do this kind of stuff. But I'm going to show you something that is going to really radically and dramatically change your view of these stupid little bunch of holes in a muzzle brake. This is what makes life interesting, because there's always something going on behind the scenes. This is really what, for the most part, drives people to acting, is because they have this whole life that they live. This whole persona thing, there's a lot going on behind the curtain. I'm going to show you something about the inside of a muzzle brake that's kind of behind the curtain enough that most people are going to go, huh? I never thought of that. This right here is a cross section of this particular brake section. Each of these holes that you see here, in fact, I can turn them in the camera until they line up. Each of these holes has got it. So now you go down in here and you'll see an impingement surface. You know, this out all the way out to here is pretty much impingement surface, and then is that gas is hitting and turning. The turning has no, we can go off about reversal, and we can go up about diversion and all kinds, but really it's the gas hitting these, and it can hit a bunch of this, but this right here is not what this brake looks like. Check this out. What you don't see is that these holes don't go straight in, nor do they have to go straight in. Look at the impingement surface on here. This brake, well, let's just say that a typical really good muzzle brake with 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 fish gills, nice and wide, big ol' curved, fish gill style muzzle brake. We all know about them, we've all seen them, they're big, you add up the surface area in there and you might find 4 square inches of impingement area. A really big one might have 6 or 7 square inches of impingement area. You take a plain old, and I'm going to throw the Harrells out here because I really like to push the Harrell boys. They're smart people. The Harrell's radial muzzle brake has got as much impingement surface area as most of them. It honestly is exactly what they say. This guy right here has some more. But not only that, this is made out of aluminum because it's for subsonic. But even if it was not, for supersonic, this design would never work. These holes are spaced so close together that anybody who's ever built a muzzle brake is going to go, man, you fire that thing? If I fired this in a 50 BMG, I would lose body parts. This would just shatter and go blasting down the range because there's a few things you need to have. And this has got so many impingement surfaces. That's the shape of the impingement surface. It's almost all impingement surface. The only place that's not getting gas is these, and you count the sides, you add this up. This brake right here has 24 square inches of impact surface. Once you understand it and how it works and how muzzle brakes work and how the design is, I honestly feel that for handheld firearms, to the best of my knowledge, yonder is the world's biggest muzzle brake, and very, very, very effective.